Tonight, the president goes face-to-face with one of his biggest international foes as the debate over Syria rages back home in D.C. Now, welcome to this jam-packed edition of Hannity. Now, later this hour, we're going to show you chilling video of Syrian rebels that you have to see to believe. But first tonight, let's begin in D.C., where the battle lines are beginning to be drawn over whether or not to attack the Assad regime. And while Congress will not consider a formal use of force resolution until next week, White House aides are already reportedly worried they do not have the votes to pass the measure, particularly in the House of Representatives. But if it fails, the State Department is now suggesting the president may go it alone. Let's take a look.
Obviously, the president has the authority to act without the cooperation of Congress. But the president and the secretary strongly agreed that when the administration and the people's representatives stand together, that strengthens our case and makes our case even stronger internationally.
Now, while the administration threatens to act unilaterally, President Obama's counterpart in Moscow is issuing a bold warning of his own. Just hours before going face-to-face with Obama at the G20 summit, Russian President Vladimir Putin stated that he intends to supply Syria with a missile shield if the U.S. carries out an attack without the support of the UN. Now, that is not the only controversial statement that Putin has made in the past 24 hours. He's also gone on record calling Secretary of State John Kerry a liar. He made those comments about America's top diplomat on Wednesday, accusing Kerry of lying to the U.S. Congress. So essentially, if you're still unsure whether or not the president has fulfilled his promise to, quote, restore America's standing in the world, well, the answer is no. Here with reaction, Florida Congressman Ron DeSantis, Arizona Congressman Paul Gosar is with us. Ron, let me start with you first. Let's get to the issue. The president, first he said he had the authority, still said he had the authority, but yet he went to Congress. Now that it looks like the House may vote against it, the State Department says he might act alone. Do you think he has the authority to do it?
Not in this instance, because we don't have Americans in jeopardy. He's not really defending the United States like Reagan did in Grenada or responding to the Libya attacks. But I think the president decided to come to Congress not because he cares about Congress. He acts unilaterally all the time. I think it was because he wanted political cover. But I think the reality that he's running into is the American people don't want the intervention because they recognize that the people fighting Assad are also hostile to American interests. So the outcome of the civil war would be an anti-American regime. And so the calls in my office and in my colleagues' offices are 95-1 against getting involved in Syria right now.
That's true, then. Is the calls coming in on the D.C. switchboard are 95-1?
In my office, it's been overwhelming. I did a town hall meeting earlier this week, and I had 60 people there, and it was 59-1 saying do not get involved in Syria. And that's an issue. You got to have some legitimacy behind your decision. And in a representative form of government, you have that many people who are opposed to this. There's something wrong about taking us to war when the people just do not want to do it.
Well, especially the way the president has defined and telegraphed he's going to do it. No boots on the ground, not open-ended, days, not weeks, and no regime change. So then one has to ask, well, what's the point of all this? Congressman Gosar, let's go to the issue of Vladimir Putin. What he was referring to is Kerry saying that the opposition has increasingly become more defined by its moderation. Many of the experts that I talk to that know this region well say that is not true, that the al-Qaeda-linked terrorists are more likely to seize power if Assad is gone.
Well, we've seen that all over, Sean. You know, they tend to be more organized, better trained, and they tend to be the leaders within these groups. And so over and over again, this administration's been wrong one time in Egypt and in Libya, and now again here. They don't ever tell us the right story.
All right. Well, let's talk about, you know, there are some moderates there. We do have the Free Syrian Army, but haven't their numbers dwindled? Haven't they taken a lot of hits in this conflict?
Absolutely, and that's why we get back to the numbers. Representative McCall questioned Senator Kerry in regards to that. He was astonished because he heard that the numbers were more than 50-50 with al-Qaeda involved within the opposition rebels.
Has the president, Congressman DeSantis, made the case for intervention here?
I don't think so, because I don't think they have a clearly defined objective. So the notion is, okay, we want to punish Assad for using poison gas, well, we don't want to punish him enough to where that would help the rebel forces, and we're really not after regime change. And so they're kind of trying to thread this needle, and I think at the end of the day, either you're going to do a strike that is a pinprick and not going to make a difference, or you really will do a heavy strike, at which point it's just a fact that that will help some of these Islamists and al-Qaeda fighters who are on the other side. And I just don't see how, coming up on the anniversary of September 11th, both with the Benghazi deaths and, of course, 2001, that we would actually be intervening in a military conflict that would have the result of helping Sunni Islamists and al-Qaeda fighters.
Congressman Gosar, what do you make of the president's statement that I didn't draw a red line? Now, I have the date and the time a year ago where he said, yes, if they use chemical weapons, they're crossing a red line. Now he's saying it was your red line. It was the world's red line. Did he say that?
Yeah,
Who said it? He said it.
He actually said it, but this administration blames everybody for every problem that goes on. You know, Sean, this is an atrocity that we see here. You know, you said it, and I'll make an analogy. I'm a healthcare professional. You know, getting involved in Syria is like taking care of a fever when you have to take care of an abscess. And when you want to take care of the abscess in the Middle East is Iran, because they're the ones who are developing weapons of mass destruction and terrorism. You know, this is an absurdity.
All right, let's say that the president, Congressman DeSantis, goes ahead and he does what he says he's going to do, which is limited in nature, no boots on the ground, days, not weeks, no regime change. And let's say that the Syrians and the Iranians, they follow through on their promise, which is to retaliate against Israel. Is the Congress prepared to back Israel, considering we're putting them in that predicament?
Well, I would certainly back Israel, and I think Paul mentioned Iran as really being the core strategic threat for both us and Israel, and we should be focusing on deterring Iran and their nuclear weapons. But you raise the issue, Sean, about they say it's going to be limited, no boots on ground. The problem is you don't know what's going to happen after you start engaging, and so it very well may be that it requires an escalation depending on how Assad and how Iran responds. And so it's irresponsible to guarantee the American people that American boots will not be on the ground, because we don't know what's going to happen with the exigencies of war.
And it may very well be that we help assist al-Qaeda-linked radical Islamists come to power. Is that a possible consequence, Congressman Gosar?
Absolutely. And when you start looking at the State Department releasing a memo later or today, that the military actually said it would take 75,000 military folks on the ground to secure chemical weapons. I mean, that's far from what we're hearing right now. There's no trust in this administration. They've lied to us in Egypt and the Benghazi and Fast and Furious. Why should we trust them now?
All right, let's talk about the vote. As of now, there's been a number of analysis about this. We've got about 199 lawmakers kind of decisively ruling out support and saying they're unlikely to back it. About 49 members of the House said they will likely vote in favor of the resolution. I guess, Congressman DeSantis, we'll start with you. Do you think, as this gets debated and discussed, and do you think there's any chance this passes in the House?
I think it's very unlikely, and part of it is because of the nature of the opposition that we would essentially be helping. People do not want to see Islamic supremacists and al-Qaeda fighters get an upper hand in there. And I think the more and more people look at Syria, they say that the outcome will either be Assad stays, which is bad, the rebels take over, which would be maybe a Muslim Brotherhood type government, maybe a failed state where you have terror being launched from there. And so none of those options are good. And I think given where the public is, I think most members are going to say that this is probably not a wise move and not in our national interest at this time.
We're going to get into this in more detail. I agree with both of your assessments that if we really want to send a message, those that want a modern-day Holocaust, the Iranians that have threatened to wipe Israel off the map, if we want to make a difference in the region, it's got to be taken out their nuclear sites. Otherwise, this pinprick is a waste of time and, frankly, a risk to our military in Israel that I don't think is worth taking. Thank you both. Appreciate it. We'll watch the vote closely, gentlemen.
Thank you.